Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the Tory campaign disasters that you probably haven't heard of from this second week. But this is because they've been drowned out by the much more newsworthy disasters. But the big stuff is only half the story. There's a reason why some are now asking if it's too late to swap Sunak out for a new leader after all, which sounds mad. But I might explore that further in the stream this evening. For now, let's look at just how bad this past week has been for the Conservatives. Because we know the major cock-ups. Rishi Sunak shouted a lot during the TV debate on Tuesday, but then it turned out Labour were playing him with the devastating letter from the Treasury, which proved that Sunak had lied. Then the Office for Statistics Regulation called Sunak's claims about Labour tax plans misleading as well. This would have been bad enough, but then Sunak acts with a level of stupidity that even my own cynical disposition didn't predict. He left D-Day commemorations in order to record a TV interview that won't even be shown until halfway through next Wednesday. This has triggered a monumental backlash, not least from within his own party. Then, just to cap off a disastrous week, he was heckled by a GP who attacked his record on the NHS, and then he appeared to laugh at her as one of his cronies accused GPs of spending more time on holiday than in the surgery. An insult that won't do Sunak any good. I remember how the audience made very audible sounds of disapproval when Sunak tried to blame striking doctors for NHS waiting lists on Tuesday. And just to make matters worse, this heckling GP was a Conservative Party member, so can't even be accused of just being party politically motivated. In isolation, all of these things would have made for a disastrous second week of the campaign. That's without even mentioning the entrance of Nigel Farage to the proceedings. But although that is very bad for the Tories, it's not a campaign cock-up on their part. The Tory error, as far as Nigel Farage is concerned, is ever letting him had much of a platform in the first place. So the Tories are crashing and burning in the campaign, as I suggested it would under Sunak, and yet there was so much more which you won't even be aware of. First of all, let's go over the polling results. Like, you may have seen the headline results, but the details under the bonnet are showing. First of all, the Tories were hoping for a narrowing of the polls in the form of undecided Conservative voters holding their nose and voting Tory rather than letting Labour in. Now, the Conservatives were always overestimating the size of this undecided pool, but there was certainly enough to narrow the polls by quite a bit. However, when Farage entered the arena, polling showed that a significant number of those undecided voters were suddenly deciding to vote Reform UK. Polling where the fieldwork has taken place after the D-Day scandal has shown even more doing so. So what the polls are showing is that this pool of undecided Conservative voters is getting smaller as they decide, as you'd expect, because undecided doesn't mean won't vote, it just means we don't know how we'll vote. Well, now that the election's here, some are deciding. But not many are deciding to vote Conservative. So this hope of a load of voters turning up on polling day like the cavalry to hold their nose and vote for Sunak is looking more and more unlikely. In fact, the D-Day blunder could well be a game changer in many ways. I've said that I think the polls have inflated Reform UK's share of the vote. I've explained my reasons in the past and won't bore you with the details again here. But I will say this, Sunak's behaviour this week is precisely the sort of behaviour that would be most off-putting to the types of voter who are torn between Reform UK and the Conservative Party. And Farage showed how astute he is as well. Farage was able to use the TV debate last night to boast about how he'd raised £100,000 to take veterans to Normandy for the commemoration. Sunak couldn't even be bothered to take his full part representing the UK when he didn't even need to do any work for it, just stand still and look plausible. The difference between the two leaders to the sorts of voters who positively venerate World War II exploits could not be more stark. This may actually result in Reform UK really solidifying their vote, even though they don't have much of a ground campaign. Mind you, it's not clear that the Conservatives have much of a ground campaign either. I live in a place where there's like lots of little clusters of small posh villages dotted about. Conservative breeding grounds, basically. Someone told me they saw a massive Vote Labour banner on the side of a big house in one of them this week. This would have been unthinkable last election. And then on the flip side of that, I see reference to a letter in the Telegraph in which a Conservative activist said, In their area, they needed dozens and dozens of vote Conservative signs for people to stick in their gardens in 2019 and even 1997 where they lost. But not a single one has been taken this year. The local party members don't want to stick signs in their garden saying vote Conservative. Now, I said some time ago that Sunak was jettisoning party activists by holding the election after the local elections. Councillors are the backbone of all local election campaign efforts, or all local campaign efforts of any kind. So if you spend 2 years losing a massive chunk of your councillors, you're losing a massive chunk of your ground operation. And Conservative Party Chair Richard Holden seems to have made the worst chicken run in history. A chicken run's what you call it, when an MP looks around and thinks, oh, I don't fancy my chances around here, and tries to move to a safer seat for the general election. With boundary changes eliminating some constituencies, including Holden's, a lot of Tory MPs had a ready excuse to go to higher ground, politically speaking. Holden moved from Durham in the north of England to Essex, 300 miles away in the south. You'd naturally assume he's gone for a nice, safe seat. Your assumption would be wrong. According to the latest MRP polls, Labour have got a real chance of taking this new seats, Basildon and Billericay, or Billericay rather, and Holden's chances of holding the seat are not helped by the outright hostility that his local Conservative association has shown to him. They were very vocal in wanting someone else. Now that his candidacy is confirmed, they've said that they're not going to campaign for him. They're going to campaign. They're just going to do it next door for a different Tory candidate. And at this point, I'm thinking, so why did he go there? He's gone somewhere where the local association don't want him. Okay, that can happen. But it's not even a safe seat. Like 300 miles away and it's not even a safe seat. That's like, if he loses it, and he might not, it's very much in the balance. He could easily win it. But if he does lose it, that's going to look like the worst chicken run in history. There were also a few dramas as the deadline for candidates loomed yesterday, because it's now too late for a candidate, for new candidates to be nominated. Keep an eye out next week for candidates being outed for politically damaging behaviour. As things currently stand, Labour have a candidate for every seat they wanted to contest, and the Conservatives all but one. And the one they're missing is Rotherham. They have no chance in that anyway. But if either party haven't done their vetting homework properly, they could be losing more candidates next week if anyone has been sitting on damaging revelations until it was too late to replace them. They almost came a cropper because one Conservative candidate had to be replaced at the last minute when something came out about them, but they had just enough time to do it. They don't now. So if anything comes out next week, that's it. You've either got to stick by that candidate or you've got to drop them and have no one. And there was campaign advertising drama yesterday as well. There's an excellent Twitter account which tracks and reports on political advertising. Who targets me? It's absolutely brilliant because all we generally see of the campaign is what comes through the mainstream media. But political parties target certain demographics with focused ads on social media. And this account shows us what they're doing and to whom. And yesterday they noted that the Conservatives completely stopped all paid for digital advertising. Just stopped it dead. Presumably a response to how the D-Day blunder was forcing a fundamental rethink and strategy from the Tories. The ads were started up again later yesterday, and they appear to have a change of tone. They're still pushing the discredited £2,000 tax bill figure, but they're now focusing on adverts which ask people to vote Tory. Not for a Tory government now, they've abandoned that, but just to stop Labour having a large majority. So the Tories first of all seem to adopt an election strategy proposed by Neanderthal, culture wars and attack trans people, which has done them no good at all. They've now got Owen Jones advising their advertising strategy. What could go wrong? But speaking of campaigns, the absolute best campaign poster was bouncing around yesterday. I don't even know if it's real. I haven't seen anyone say, oh, this is definitely Photoshop, but it's too good to be real, I feel. But it doesn't matter whether it's real or not. It's certainly not real and produced by a political party, which is a shame. Because if either Labour or the Lib Dems had come up with this and stuck it in each of the constituencies that they're targeting, I would have been devastating. He left them on the beaches with Rishi Sunak running away. Work of genius. And just to finish off, speaking of Rishi Sunak, again, I'll talk about this in the stream this evening, but it's just worth noting Rishi Sunak's constituency has more than its fair share of voters interested in military matters. Sam Friedman, a rather more professional political commentator, noted that about a quarter of people in Sunak's constituency either work at the Cataract Garrison or are veterans. So that's like a quarter of people in his constituency are in some way connected with the military directly. So his D-Day scandal could well make his own seat vulnerable. Labour are the clear tactical vote there, by the way. So all things considered, it's really hard to work out how Sunak could have had a worse week. But the good news is that we've got another 4 weeks to find out. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.